Well, extreme MAGA Republicans have pushed out of their party yet another person for daring to say their unserious governance and lies should be rejected. Ken Buck has become a very interesting character that we've been circling back to from time to time. He's a Republican congressman from Colorado, and in two primary areas, he starts sounding a lot more reasonable than MAGA Republicans: the election and their impeachment effort into Joe Biden. He called it impeachment theater. And before going any further, let me make something really clear. None of what I'm saying here ignores the fact that Ken Buck voted for a crazy Speaker of the House like Mike Johnson, or it's not ignoring the fact that he's wrong on so many important policy issues, and those things absolutely matter. But it's important to point out when people are willing to call out the extreme MAGA part of the Republican Party and reject it in words and also in actions. And Ken Buck did, for example, vote to certify Biden's 2020 election victory, which is the lowest bar you could possibly imagine, but that's where we are right now. And Ken Buck announced today that he will not be running for re-election because, number one, he doesn't feel like the GOP is able to accomplish the things he wants to see accomplished. And number two, he's tired of members of his own party being consumed by the big lie that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. And we'll talk about the importance of people like Ken Buck, Adam Kinzinger, and others calling out all of this after watching the clip. Here is Ken Buck on MSNBC making this announcement.
How do you unite behind decisions, complicated decisions with such a thin margin? What about your own role?
Yeah, well, I have decided, Andrea, I'm not going to seek re-election.
You too?
Yeah, I am joining Kay and probably some others in the near future, but I've decided that it is time for me to do some other things. I'm always have been disappointed with our inability in Congress to deal with major issues, and I'm also disappointed that the Republican Party continues to, rely on this lie that the 2020 election was stolen and rely on the January 6th narrative and the political prisoners from January 6th and other things. If we're going to solve difficult problems, we've got to deal with some very unpleasant truths or lies and make sure that we project to the public what the truth is.
Now, again, if the Republican Party was productive in the ways in which Ken Buck wants it to be, it would probably do a whole lot of things that I wouldn't like. But it's important that he is willing to say having a functional and healthy party in a democracy requires a basic respect for that democracy. And so much of the Republican Party has just completely abandoned that respect in service of Donald Trump's big lie or his election lies. And most importantly, the actions that those election lies are used to justify the attempt to prevent the peaceful transfer of power in 2021, for example. And I know some of you may suggest and put forward that Ken Buck is reportedly looking to work for CNN after he is out of Congress. So maybe that's why he's saying these things, which in a way that does indeed make this feel less impactful. But in another sense, I would rather someone who chooses the truth on the subject and gets a comfy job for it than someone who chooses lies on the subject and also has a comfy job in Congress. And Ken Buck has also been calling out his party's abandonment of the rule of law, whether it be, as previously mentioned, wanting to install Trump president despite the election results, or many MAGA members wanting to defund or even abolish, as Matt Gaetz said, the FBI because of their investigations into Donald Trump, them attempting to hold him accountable for potential violations of the law, and then MAGA's attacks against the DOJ more broadly for those same reasons. Here's a video of him that he posted on X calling out Republicans.
Our nation is on a collision course with reality, and a steadfast commitment to truth, even uncomfortable truths, is the only way forward. Too many Republican leaders are lying to America, claiming that the 2020 election was stolen, describing January 6th as an unguided tour of the Capitol, and asserting that the ensuing prosecutions are a weaponization of our justice system. These insidious narratives breed widespread cynicism and erode Americans' confidence in the rule of law. It is impossible for the Republican Party to confront our problems and offer a course correction for the future while being obsessively fixated on retribution and vengeance for contrived injustices of the past. This trend among Republicans is a significant departure from the enduring principles of conservatism. We belong to the party of Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan. Our movement has always been fueled by immutable truths about human nature, individual liberty, and economic freedoms. The Republican Party of today, however, is ignoring self-evident truths about the rule of law and limited government in exchange for self-serving lies.
Now here's the freaky part. Here is another one down. And what is the likelihood that someone more unreasonable than Ken Buck takes over his seat? Pretty good. And so now we've seen this same pattern with Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and now Ken Buck. You speak out against Donald Trump's election lies, and very likely you'll either be booted or you'll be fed up enough to boot yourself out of your position of power, which means the Republican Party is just becoming more and more hardcore MAGA. And because of the fact that, as Ken Buck calls out, MAGA is uninterested in serious governance, we're increasingly dealing with a party that is nearly impossible to work with. We have to deal with the nonsense of people like Marjorie Greene, Louis Gohmert, Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, making it nearly impossible to implement real solutions for the American people, which is obviously really unfortunate, unless Democrats have solid majorities in the House and Senate, which hopefully we can make happen in 2024. Now, I brought up the name a couple of times of Adam Kinzinger, another Republican who spoke out against Trump's attempt to steal the 2020 election, and he ended up not running for re-election. He did an interview on CNN where he talked about the kind of backlash that he received because of his decision to stand for our democracy and against Donald Trump. And this serves as a reminder of what MAGA will do to you if you speak out against the dear leader. Take a look.
In the book, you also describe sort of a lot of it's very personal. It's the personal messages that you received after voting to impeach the former president, not just from, people in your district, but from family members.
So I had family that sent a certified letter disowning me. They said, I've lost the trust of great men like Sean Hannity. Just funny, but they believe that. They said I was a member of the Devil's Army. We had people that would call and threaten to kill my, at the time, 5-month-old child, or say they wish he would die. You think about that. I had my co-pilot from Iraq, Anderson. It's one of the most intense bonds you can build. Sure. Who texted me and said he was ashamed to have ever flown with me and served with me. Why? Because I disagreed with his view of Donald Trump. And he didn't like the fact that I was telling him the truth when it's so much more comfortable to believe something else. So I talk about in the book, I hopefully mince no words in saying I bear some responsibility for this. And I accept my role in the party to a point. But I also recognize that we're in a really bad place. And until we talk about it, and I think my story kind of encapsulates the slide of the GOP, we're going to have a really sick nation until they get better.
So obviously, pretty brutal. Donald Trump and his allies have successfully created a world for their followers to live in, this alternate world, not the real one, but this little special one for them, where the election was stolen and it was okay for Trump to put together a slate of fake electors and just fraudulently assert them to be the real ones to justify Trump just staying in power despite the results of the election, and trying to disenfranchise millions of voters, having his lawyers tamper with voting machines, pressuring election officials to fraudulently find votes, and on it goes. And if you don't agree to all those things, then you deserve in their mind to be threatened, degraded, and abandoned by people who live within that world. And it's pretty heartbreaking to think about. And it's heartbreaking to think about how difficult it's going to be to get past this moment where that is the case. Yes, at some point, Trump will no longer be politically relevant, but the infrastructure of this alternate world will definitely remain. The media outlets that have become designed to pump out information aligned with the world, those will still exist. And how we combat that, and eventually how we see those things in the rearview mirror, I really don't know. It's going to be difficult, but voting, number one. Here was more of this interview with Adam Kinzinger where he outlines the threat of Donald Trump getting into power once again.
Do you still consider yourself a Republican?
So it's a tough question. I do, only in that because I don't want to give up on that fight. I mean, this country needs two healthy parties, a healthy Democratic Party and a healthy Republican. So I'm not going to give up that title. A country needs a good conservative and a good liberal movement at any time in their lives. I still have the title, but I voted Democratic last election cycle. If it's Trump against Joe Biden, I'll vote Democratic this coming one. Because, Anderson, I really believe it's down to one issue on the ballot. And not taxes, not even abortion, nothing. The one issue is, do you believe in democracy or do you believe in authoritarianism? And I think that's the only thing we should be voting on.
Because you see a legitimate slide to authoritarianism if Donald Trump is reelected?
I see, if he's reelected, not a slide, a sprint. Because in January 6th, we saw the guardrails, of democracy held. The car hit the rails. It kept you on the road. That rail can't take 2 hits. And now they know what they're doing. Now they know where the tricks are in the system. I guarantee you Donald Trump will not put people around him that are loyal to the Constitution and will push back. He'll put, if you interview 100 people, trust me, you're going to find somebody to be Attorney General that simply tells you, I'll do whatever you want, Mr. President. Those guardrails are being ripped out. And that's what I see as what would happen, frankly, if he's reelected.
He's, of course, exactly right. Donald Trump learned from his mistakes and learned how to go full authoritarian if he gets into power once again. He attempted to overthrow a democratic election last time. What will he do this time with even more loyal people alongside him? No Mike Pence or Bill Barr who will disagree in that moment. He's promising to lock up his political opponents at campaign rallies. He's threatening the life of his former top general on Truth Social, calling for the termination of the Constitution, says shoplifters should be shot on their way out of a store, etc. As Adam Kinzinger said, the guardrails of a democracy can handle one crash, but maybe not any more of them. So please, 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 I'll end on this, vote. Before you go, don't forget to become a member at lukebeasley.com/membership. That gets you access to the full bonus show Monday through Friday. Very exciting, very fun. Plus, follow me on Threads at Luke Beasley Official, Instagram at Luke Beasley Official, Twitter or X at Luke P. Beasley, and sign up for the Beasley Brief, a daily morning newsletter that summarizes the previous day's events by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/brief, and I'll talk to you next time.